Okay, so here we are in our Power Hour today with Simon Lazarus of the Better Business Group. Welcome, Simon. And believe it or not, this is our third session from when we first started these Power Hours during the COVID strange 6-7 months that we've had, and they've been really interesting. And today's is another good one. So we'll talk more about our focus today, but just a little bit of background quickly about Simon. He is one of the leading building firm mentors in the UK, perhaps the building firm small business mentor. I don't know of another. So you are very specialist and you really know your stuff in this area, which is why we keep coming back to talk to you. On the flip side, you really know the homeowner as well, which is an interesting one because you've got a lot of experience through all your surveying, I understand it, of the homeowner who's having an extension or loft or new build, what have you done, and what they're really looking for in their builder, which is sometimes interesting, an insight into what the homeowner is thinking. And we probably all think we know our clients, but quite often we don't. So I think you bring an interesting perspective from that side as well. So I'm sure we'll touch on some of that today. So today's Power Hour is all about building better profit into your business. And again, Simon, well versed in this. He's got loads to talk about. I have so many questions here, Simon, for you today that I want to put to you on behalf of our builders. So if I have to refer to a few notes, I've got paper here. So this is going out live. So I need to refer perhaps, and I'm sure likewise.
I've got loads of notes here as well.
Yes, and as you can see, we're all working from home during this strange old time. So excuse random dog bark or telephone, we're coming at you live. So back to today's topic, the focus is on building profit, and building profit into the business, as we're going to uncover today with Simon, takes time. It's not something that, is a switch overnight. You have to, like so many things in life, plan for it. And there are a number of changes that you need to make to your business. But we're going to find out from Simon today, they're all perfectly possible. It might seem a bit of a challenge when you start out on this journey, but I think you won't regret it. And as one customer said to me, a mutual customer of actually HBXL and Simon, he said, I wish I talked to Simon 30 years ago. So that's saying something. So he's quite far onto his journey with his building company. So I guess that shows there's no better time than now to start wherever you are. If you've recently started out and you're in your 20s, or you've got a reasonable grip on your business, but you're in your 30s and are thinking, where do I want to take this? Or perhaps you've got your eye on retirement and how do you get there? Wherever you're at, there's loads you can take from this session and what Simon's got to share with us. And just one quick shout out before I start with the questions, Simon, because I've been on a bit of a monologue as usual, is that I need to emphasize Simon is going to talk to you one-to-one if you want after this session. So we'll put up his email address, his the Better Business Group phone number, so you can give him a shout directly and have a chat about your business. He can talk in general terms about his observations from what you're saying. And then if you really want to get into the kind of nitty gritty of how he can help you, then you can kind of engage his services further thereafter. But I think that first hour, your one-to-one Power Hour with Simon, you'll get a ton out of it anyway. So I recommend that you speak to Simon directly. And as I say, details at the end of the session. So today, fasten your seatbelts. Simon's going to be blunt. I'm going to feel like I've been slapped, I think, after this. He's got there's so much to take away from it. And we say lovingly at HBXL, Simon is like a bit like a Gordon Ramsay of the building game. There's a few expletives in there. I feel like I've been through a few rounds boxing or something. But like Gordon, you come out with a Michelin star business out the other end, I hope. Yeah, we're gonna.
Thanks for that.
We're gonna learn some good stuff. Always a pleasure. So Simon, I've got to start by asking a blunt question of my own. So, in case anyone is living under a rock, we are in a pandemic right now, and where we're at in the cycle of this pandemic, there's another good 6 months or so. We're being told, aren't we, by government, that we're going to be in for a tricky time. So increasing margins, increasing profits, which probably will involve putting up prices for the client, isn't this just one of the worst times to even be beginning to think about doing this? What's your take on that? Because I think sounds like quite a tough time to do it, a tough ask.
Well, it's a wake-up call, isn't it? I suppose people have to look at where they are. Everything we've been through over the last 6 months or so, have they still got money in the bank? Have they got a viable business? If they haven't, then they haven't been charging the right money up to now. So this is not about ripping clients off. This is charging what you're worth.
Hmm.
My experience is that most builders are grossly undercharging for the quality of work they're giving the clients.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the building trade is cyclical. Every 4 or 5 years or so, we get a recession.
Hmm.
The building trade is the first into the recession. It's the last out of recession. People get very complacent in the 2 or 3 years in the middle when they're making good money and they think it's going to go on forever, which, as experience has shown very harshly now, that's definitely not the case. So you have to build profits into the business. Most people I see are basically working for a glorified wage and not much else. They've got nothing put aside for a rainy day. They haven't got money to, as we'll talk about later, to come off the tools and so on. So this is not about ripping people off and charging extortionate amounts of money. It's charging about what they should have been charging all the way along the line.
Yeah, that was going to be my exact point, actually, because I think, people might think, well, it's a bit unfair to be increasing my prices for the homeowners right now, and I'm upping the cost of the job for the benefit of the builder. But I guess when building firms aren't in it as a charity, and there's a bit of it's a funny time as well, I think, in the cycle for builders right now. Here we are in the autumn, where there's been a lot of pent-up demand through lockdown. There's a fair number of leads coming through from that period that perhaps builders hadn't managed to get on top of. So they're feeling quite busy right now, and there's not a lot of time to think. So yeah, I would say it's a strange time for them to be thinking of putting up their prices into 2021. But I guess you would argue, I would guess you'd argue the opposite.
It's a false market. There's a massive pent-up demand. No work got done for 4 months. All those jobs that were postponed are now starting now. Mm-hmm. So builders think that they're in a really good time. But in reality, what's going to happen, we might be coming in for a second lockdown. People might not want to start a building job with the thought that you might have to pull off site halfway through the job. So in the future, it's not looking so rosy. There's plenty of planning applications going through, more than last year, actually.
Oh,
so
right.
there is huge demand for the work. The practicalities are, though, in reality, there's lots of stupidly cheap prices out there. Right. The guys that didn't get any help through the government schemes, through the COVID schemes, the bounce back schemes and so on, they're desperate for money. They've had no help whatsoever. They're dirt cheap, half the price of the cost of materials. I'm seeing some quotes coming through at the moment.
That's just ridiculous.
It just can't be done. They just want a bit of cash in, and then it's a disaster for the client from there on inwards. So you definitely, the price differential now is going to be bigger than before. So you cannot win by trying to play these cheap builders at their own game. You cannot win by trying to be cheap. However low you go, there'll be somebody half your price guaranteed.
Right, so sorry, I interrupted you there.
The only way to succeed and have a proper business and a future is to charge the right money for the job, which is not just a wage. You need to make profits for the business. That's what funds a business for the future. It's what funds the fact you can come off the tools in the future. And it's what keeps you going through bad times like we've got now, possibly continuing to get.
So being competitive isn't enough. It's not. You've got to go further.
You've got to take a step back, okay? Every job these builders have ever done, the client could have used somebody cheaper, but for whatever reason, they chose to pay a premium for that builder. Likewise, every job they've done at the price they've charged, there are more expensive builders in their area. They're still in business. They're still charging premium. Everybody listening to this will know those expensive builders.
Yeah.
So rather than looking down at the cheap guy, they should be looking up at the expensive guy, thinking, well, what do I need to do to emulate him? Why is he able to charge this premium over me? I'm hands on the tools myself. I give a personal service. That other guy's got loads of subcontracting teams. The quality varies between them. I probably give a better service to the client at the end of the day, and I'm earning far less than the other guy.
Yeah.
Why is that? You've got to look outside the bubble you're in and look at the big marketplace and gear yourself up to be attractive to the right sort of client and then charge the right money. Good clients want good builders. They'll pay the right money. If you're chasing the cheap clients, you'll never earn money.
Yeah. Okay. So how within the Better Business Group do you help the builder with that then? What can you do to help him, I guess, understand where he's at right now? Well, is that what you do?
Yeah, well, before they come on board with us, we do comprehensive surveys on their past customers. We were the first people to do this in Europe. We had this business for 25 years. We send a hugely detailed questionnaire to the previous customers. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly to us, actually, they're very happy to fill it out and let us know why they use them, what they thought of them. When they're working with us, we talk to the clients, we find out who their competitors are, what the prices are on the job. Often the client will send me the alternative quotes to look over because they can't believe why they're so different in price. They're never like for like, which is something I think we've talked about in a previous Power Hour, so I won't go over that again. So there's huge variations in what the client's seeing. All these cheap builders are brilliant at point of sale. The client's really tempted to use them because they come across very well at point of sale. They come across better than good builders often, who aren't very salesy, and they're cheap, so people are tempted. So these builders that we're talking to today, their skill has got to be in proving why they're worth the difference. If you go along and talk the same tune, have a one-page quote with no detail, try and compete on price, you're going to look very similar to a guy that's 20% cheaper than you. They're not going to pay the premium. What you can do is take a step back, at every stage prove your knowledge, your professionalism, your reliability, your trustworthiness, why you're better. If you do work as part of an organisation, you sign a legally binding mediation procedure, which means if there's a dispute, we'll support others' right. So the client has peace of mind going into the contract. They've got some help and advice if things should go pear-shaped. And similarly, if the builder has a bad client, we'll help them. So there's lots of ways you can show the client that you're different. We've covered a lot of them before.
I was going to say, I think we've one of our last power hours actually was on marketing your business, and I guess marketing means two things. One is the outward marketing, i.e., how you communicate, your services, and there's obviously how you communicate with a prospect directly, how you set yourself apart in lots of different subtler ways to charge your worth. And I think it's really interesting to keep revisiting. It's about charging your worth. It's not about just slapping on a margin, an additional margin, and going for it. You have to prove it. I guess earn the respect of the potential client that you're worth that money. And I think that's why, as we've said before, it's about building your profit margins over time to get building the processes and the way you run your business so that you can charge that time and time again. A quick test is this. Have a think about some of the jobs you've done recently, okay? And think about what you charge to do that work. Think back to what the property looked like before you started and what it was worth. What's that property looking like now and what it's worth? Who got the better deal out of that arrangement? You've improved their property vastly. They're quit in after paying you. Who got the better part of the deal here? Did they get or did you get? And inevitably, if you take a cold look at it, the client got a much better deal out of the builder than he did out of them. And it should be even-handed. It's a professional industry. People work bloody hard and they work long hours and they're just not getting a return for it. And that's what they should be doing. Good profitable companies do that, and it is achievable. So I've seen on different websites threads saying, for example, it would be better to move house right now than pay the price of a builder to do my extension or loft conversion. And builders probably thinking, well, I can either slap in a price and they'll take it or not, or I'll go in cheap and I'll win it. But what would you say about that then? The homeowner's perspective there. I mean, that's it. I think what you're saying. Well, actually, I'm answering my own question rhetorically. The builder is going to add value to the home. It's not just about that initial X for the work. It's about that overall value.
It's interesting. Quite a lot of my builders, before they quote for the job, they'll look up the websites to see the property value and work out what it might be worth when the job's done. And often they fight shy of charging more than the difference. Right. But in reality, people don't want to move. If they're settled, if the kids are in school, what they want is a bit more space. They don't want all the upheaval and grief for moving house. I'm doing it myself now. It's a complete bloody nightmare, actually. Yes. I've got to clean the house out in an hour after I've spoken to you because I've got somebody coming to view the property. People don't want to go through all that. They're comfortable where they are. They just want some more space. And at the end of the day, if these sort of people don't want to pay the right money for the job, you don't want to be working for them. You're not running a charity here. You're running a business. There are plenty of clients out there, professional people that know that you get what you pay for, and they don't want somebody who's quoting unrealistically cheap. I had one, I think we said in the previous power hour that we did, one of my builders quoted £263,000 on a job. The client got a quote for £177,000. But the guy said, look, I've had no work on for 4 months during COVID. I'm desperate. My guys and myself, we're happy to work just for wages only, just so we can have some money coming in to put food on the table. And the client copied me in on the email. He said, look, the previous build I did, the builder went bust in the middle of the job. There's no way in the world, nice guy as you are, I'm taking that risk a second time. And he used my build for $263,000, a massive, massive premium, half as much again.
Yeah.
And I had 2 of my builders quoting on that job. The other one was $290,000. My $290,000 actually is a busier builder than my $263,000. Yeah. So forget all this price business. You can only do a certain amount of work in a year. you can either ruin half your year's turnover by working at no or little profit for somebody that doesn't want to pay the right money for the job, or you can do less work, earn more money on that job, and be better off at the end of the year, and also have a bit of a private life, which is something we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, well, let's touch on that, I guess. One bad job for a start can ruin the year, can't you? Ruin the year's accounts, ruin, massively impact on your stress levels. And as you've said to me many times, running a building firm is hugely detrimental on your personal life. You meet loads of builders that tell you this, that
half my builders are divorced. So quite a few of them more than once, actually. They have no private life.
Yes.
They work long hours, 6 or 7 days on site. Then they go and meet potential clients. Then they go home and work on the quotes. I get people that don't use your estimating software doing manual quotes, emailing me at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I think, come the end of the week, those quotes can't be in any way accurate. You've had no sleep.
Yeah.
And more worryingly, you're going to work on a dangerous site in a few hours. It's no last, and that's fine, and you battle away. And at the end of the day, these guys, they're hands on the tools themselves. They're the last person to be paid. All their suppliers get paid. All their subbies get paid. They look at what's in the pot for themselves and the business at the end of the day. And it's nowhere near worth the aggravation that they're going through to get it.
So what
they need to make the changes now.
Yes, yeah. I guess so. Just summarising then, for the listeners, what does a profitable business look like for you? What do you think about that for the?
Well, I suppose I've got sort of 6 tests when I talk to a potential client. Are they on the tools themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Are they working from home? Does the family or part of the family help them with their paperwork?
Mm-hmm.
Does the business have cash flow problems?
Yeah.
Have they got money in the bank? Can they afford to pay into a pension? Or can they not afford to pay into a pension? If the answer is yes to any of those, then what they're doing in reality is subsidising that business. They're not charging what they're worth.
Yeah.
And I'm sure most people seeing this will be able to tick at least 3 of those boxes, if not all of them, actually.
Yes,
so
I'm sure that's usually the case.
That is the case when I talk to people. Unfortunately, builders think they've got a nice business if they're working all the time and they're keeping their subbies together. But that's not what they went into business for. They went into business to have a better lifestyle, have an easier time, and to build up an asset, actually, they can pass on to their family. And very rarely do I see people that are doing that. They'd like to be there, and they're stuck in this situation where they're continually busy and getting recommended at low-value work, low-profit work, and they can't make the leap. What you've got to appreciate is, if you want to have money in the future and have an asset to pass on, you've got to be hands off that business. You've got to be able to pay somebody to do what you're doing now on that site. You've got to be able to have an office. You've got to be able to pay for an admin staff. When you're doing all that, and then you've got money to do all the things that I said previously, then you're running a proper business, aren't you? Until then, what you're doing basically is subsidising the customers. You're working for people that don't want to pay the right money for the job. They're more likely not to have any money for extras. They're not going to have any money for unforeseens. They're more likely to knock you for the final payment and the snagging and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to decide where you want to go. And believe me, it's a big world out there. There are plenty of good customers, and they are desperate to find good builders. We talk to them every day of the week.
Yeah, I guess certainly right now as well. There's, we hear a fair amount about builders saying, well, I am actually busy until next spring or into April kind of time, maybe beyond. But I guess this is quite a good time, thinking about it, that to have a think about where you want your business. If you're one of those builders, sorry, going full circle here. If you're one of those builders who has got work into next spring, into early summer, and you're thinking, or you're attending this webinar anyway, and you're thinking about this subject, going for this approach that we're going to talk about in just a moment, and charging more, charging the appropriate margin and covering overheads and so on. If you're busy already up to that point, it's not going to matter if you lose the odd job by getting this not quite right. Then, for the spring, another job will come along, I'm sure, between now and then. So it's a good time to kind of, I don't want to use the word experiment because that sounds like it might go wrong, but it's actually use it as a springboard to do it with the safety net of, no, well, I'm busy for the next 6 months. If I spend another couple of months using some of Simon's techniques to try and see what happens thereafter, I guess you're going to be charging the right value for the job, perhaps during what will be recessionary times into 21. God help us all for next year. So I think that's probably, you've answered my question about, is it the right time? And I'm thinking actually it is the right time, all said.
it's always the right time. If you're not charging the right money, you've got no alternative. You know, you get shocks like this as a wake up. If you don't charge the right money for a job, you will have no future in this industry.
Yeah.
You will end up having problems. So you've got to charge the right money for the job. And the question is, how do you do it? That's the problem with these guys. And I'm talking to builders that booked up more than a year ahead, actually. And I'm thinking, well, you've costed those jobs probably 3 or 4 months ago. How much money are you going to make in a year's time on the price that you quoted those jobs for? So it's not necessarily all sweetness and light, the fact that you're booked up months ahead. You could be losing valuable profit opportunities by not being able to do other jobs that are coming along in the
That's
meantime.
interesting, because I think it's almost like a badge of honor in some ways to be saying, I'm booked up for a year's time, but you're right. Obviously, there's a lot of cost inflation at the moment, and lots of unexpected costs keep popping up. If you don't mind, I'm going to just do a shameless plug with Estimator Express and the HBXL customers just for a moment. So we often get customers talking to our team, the HBXL team, saying, "Well, wow, I'm kind of surprised at the price that Estimator Express has come up with for this extension or loft conversion or garage conversion, what have you." And they wanted us to run through a quick sanity check on how it's costed the project. So we go through it all, we look at the plans with them, and they're like, "Wow, this is the actual cost of the project." And we say, yes, that's because it includes your wastage. It includes inflation on the job, because you're quoting on this for a 6-month time start date. There's a lot of COVID-19 additional costs in the project, and that's something just to quickly touch on, that we've got a new COVID-19 estimating calculator within Estimator Express. And builders might think, oh, that's a bit excessive, however, on a big project, say 7 to 9 month new build, something like that, you could be easily spending between £8,000 and £10,000 on additional PPE, signage, cleaning, site management, the extra porcelains and hand washing, all the sanitization stuff. It's got to come from somewhere, and it shouldn't be out of your pocket, the builder's pocket. It's got to be paid for as a cost of doing the work. And I think people are really surprised at that expense. People might just go and grab a pack of face masks and some hand gel and but all of these things add up. Even on a small extension, you could be spending many hundreds, if not the odd thousand or two on that, depending on the the length of the project. So you've got to think about all of these things. And other things like, I don't know, cost of replacing shovels. People say, well, I wouldn't think of putting a percentage of a shovel on the job. Yeah, but you've got to buy these things each year to replace them. You've got to replace plant and so on. Plus, obviously, as I've said already, a bit of wastage. So overall, people are really surprised. So number one, they're kind of, wet finger or an Excel spreadsheet that they've been putting together, which might work for them, is not actually the right price, the right cost of the build. I mean, the basic cost. And then you're going to tell me more about.
Well, this is absolutely fundamental. If people don't cost the individual jobs properly, they're not going to make a profit. They're taking a flyer. So yeah, in most times they're experienced. They know what they're doing. If the job runs to time scale with no problems, they'll make money. Firstly, that never really happens anyway. Yeah. And secondly, what most people do is they put 10, 15, maybe 20% markup on the cost price of the materials, the labour, and any plant they're going to hire in for the job. Yeah. What they don't take account of is their general overhead for the business, which we haven't really discussed. So if they've got no work on, like they haven't had for the last 4 months, every builder's had bills coming in for their hire purchase or their insurances or whatever it might be. They've got to account for that throughout the year and build that cost into every job they're costing for. Yeah. So you and I both have templates we can give these builders to calculate the whole cost for the year of everything. So no, they can't work out an individual shovel and know when to put it on a job. But if you're applying 6 shovels in the year, you add that into your spreadsheet, all the extra costs you've had in the business, and then you allocate that to the weeks of the year. If the job's going to take 6 months, you add half your annual overhead into the cost of that job. Then you put on the material cost, your labour cost, any plant hire for that specific job, and then you put your margin on top. And this is where everybody goes wrong. Yeah. They're putting 10, 15 or 20% on. These business overheads for a medium-sized business, most of the people that have been listening to this today, is probably about 15% of their turnover. Yeah. If they're putting 15% markup on their cost of materials only, they're basically costing that job at no profit, no real profit at the end of the year. Yeah, yeah. As it goes through, they're thinking they're making good money. They'll get the books back from the accountant at the end of the year. They made sod all, and they can't work out why. And this is the reason. So my view is labour, plant machinery, materials, 15% or whatever it works out for your overhead, and then you want 25 to 30% on top of that. Wow. nobody's going to
That's a
believe it's
jump,
possible.
isn't it? That's a
And
jump.
it's a huge jump, but that's where they should be, these guys. And they know it because they've got no money. They're working hand to mouth, and they've probably got a big deficit over the last few months. So they know they need to be charging more money. And this is what they really need to be doing. So the question is not, do I need to be doing it? Because they all know they do.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you go about it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, gosh, we said that there was going to be some home truths, and I feel like for every business, not just building firms, there's a lot to take from that. And I think you've said to me before, usually as the boss of a firm, there's probably lots of builder proprietors, listening to today. They're almost like the last to get paid as well. So everyone else is okay. But the builder, the owner, has got all the stress of running this flipping business, that he wanted the freedom, as you said before, to run and do his own thing. But ultimately, is probably one of the, not one of the best paid, or the one that gets the best value out of it out the other end.
And it's actually worse than we've already discussed, because by doing what we've just said, by putting a percentage on, that doesn't mean you're charging the right money for the job. What that means is you're making a profit on your low cost base.
Yeah.
So if you're on the tools, what you've got to do is pretend you're not on the tools. Cost the next job that you're in an office somewhere with an admin assistant. You're paying somebody on site to do what you do. Yeah. Put all those costs into the job and then see what it comes out at. Then put your 30% profit margin on top of that lot. And that's where you need to be charging. You're doing the same job as a more expensive builder, a builder that might be 4 or 5 years more established than you with all these costs. They've got to be more expensive than you before they set out to even talk to the customer. They've got these huge overheads, but they're still in business. They're still winning jobs. Customers are still happy to pay. So the market is there. But obviously, the problem most of the builders that we're reviewing this today have got, they get a lot of their work by recommends because they're good and they're trustworthy and they're honest. And the problem with that is all the recommends tell them what they paid. So in 5 years' time, the daughters want to pay the same money in 5 years that the mother paid today. Yeah. And they get recommended to recommended to recommend. And so year on year, there's this drag on their profits. They don't realise it. We call it a recommendation mark. And most guys I'm talking to are comfortably charging at least 20% less than they're worth in the marketplace, and they don't realise it. They're all focused on the cheap builder, and they think that's why they're losing the jobs. The customer always tells them they lost the job because they're too expensive. In my experience, way over half of those people are lying to the builders. A huge range of other reasons. These more expensive jobs with the good clients, if you come across differently at point of sale to the better prepared and the more professional builders, they're not going to use you because they don't think you're up to the job. They're not going to have an argument with you and tell you that. Right. Tell you look like a tramp, you turned up late, you didn't let me know you're going to be late. It's a one-page quote, you had no detail in it, you didn't take any notes, you walked through my house in muddy boots, all these sorts of things. All they're going to say is, sorry mate, you're far too expensive. So you think, well, bloody hell, I'm doing it on a small margin. All these foreigners, they're undercutting me all the time. I need to go a bit cheaper on the next quote. And you'll win that one, but you'll make no money. And they'll be delighted, and they'll recommend you to all their friends and relatives who also want to pay the same money in a few years' time. So you've got to break this cycle. There's a big world out there, and there are lots of good clients that are looking for good builders. You've got to come across to them differently. You've got to, HBXL, I'm a big advocate of HBXL, that's why I'm happy to do these power hours. Yeah. That's the first differentiator the customer sees. It's not a one-side quote with no detail. It's 15, 16, 18-page quote, every nut, bolt and screw they're going to use on the job. So the client knows that you understand the industry. They know that you've costed that job properly. You're not taking a flyer. And also, you can't come back and say, oh, I didn't include that in the quote. That's an extra, that's an extra, that's an extra, that's an extra, which is what the cheap guys do. So they end up paying more with that cheap guy for a worse quality job than they would have done if they'd used these builders in the first place to do it properly. Yeah. So this is all about coming across correctly at point of sale, proving that you're different. We bridge that gap as well because we endorse the client, endorse the builders to the clients. We do checks on the cheaper builder to show them truly what they're worth or not worth, and all the history of CCJs and in and out of business, loss making and all this sort of stuff. So the difference between the builders all of a sudden is much bigger, and the crap clients will still go with the cheap guy and have a problem. Yeah. We get it all the time. They phone us up and ask for somebody to come and finish the job off. But the good clients don't want aggravation. They will go with a good builder if you can prove the difference. That's what these power hours are about. Okay, so in terms of how you work with the builder then, so obviously we talked at the outset that you would be more than happy to have a more general chat with customers, and if they've got any questions off the back of today. But you start, if you work with the building firm, with the proprietor, you start by understanding where their business is today. So that involves, as we said earlier,
understanding the client's perception. That might be a bit painful, I guess. But yeah, I didn't think he was very professional because he came dirty boots and what have you. You know, the van looked, I don't know what, or he looked a bit slick. On the other hand, people equally don't like slick. So if you turn up in your brand new 4x4 that's all shiny, you know, but equally people don't quite. I mean, we're fickle. Homeowners are a fickle lot, I think. You know,
I've actually got a member that drives up in his Rolls Royce to do quotes, actually. For top end clients.
I was going to say, well, that shows he's properly top end. But yeah, that might get up my nose. If it was coming outside my house, that would wind me up. But yeah, I think he was very slick.
Actually, the more interesting surveys are on the jobs they've done. Why did they use them? What they think of them? And overwhelmingly, almost 100%, they're delighted with the quality of work. They grade them excellently. But about 8 out of 10 say they use them because they were recommended and cheap.
Yeah.
The clients know they're cheap. They know they're cheap when they're using them. They're still telling them they're expensive to make them down in price.
So this is such a double-edged sword because, again, another badge of honour is the recommendation. I know that so many of the builders that I talk to, you know, I get all my work by recommends. I don't have to do too much advertising. You know, I'm good at what I do, and so those two ticks: recommendations. I'm good at what I do, and you know, they are very experienced. But this is cheap. And really good value. And for you, I find it really difficult because I'm always talking about good value within the software and the value you get back from the software. But you're always saying in the eyes of the homeowner, good value isn't good news for the builder on the project cost.
Well, it's great getting work by recommends. What you've got to remember is if they're getting work by recommends, the other builders that are quoting against you are probably recommended by different people. So 3 different building companies in recommended. They're then perceiving you all very similarly. If you do nothing different, they're going to go with the cheaper guy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which is why we get the surveys back that we do get. So it's a bigger picture than people realise. And I've got to tell you, if people are getting work by recommends and they're quoting the right money, they should be converting no more than 5 out of 10.
Right.
And most of them will be quoting 7, 8 or 9 out of 10, thinking that they're brilliant. But they're not. They're winning so many because they're not charging the right value for the jobs in the first place.
That's a real eye-opener, isn't it? That it's not on skill, it's on cheapness. Okay, so just recapping then, so building a proper profit margin. So number 1, it starts with costing your project properly. Again, shameless plug, Estimator Express will help you get your base costs of the building work done. You've then got to look at, I think, just summarising what you were saying, you've then got to look at your overhead on top of that. So that's all your insurance, your office costs, your van, all the costs of just running the business, whether you're building or not. You don't have to even put a shovel in the ground. It's just the cost of running it, including your mobile phone and everything else. You get that total cost for the year, divide it up by the weeks of the year, and then for every client that you're on, working on a project, you need to allocate a portion of that on top. And in normal terms, you're saying that should be about 15% odd of the cost of the project. So do that first. Then add on your profit margin. You're suggesting you could be as bold as 20 to.
Yeah, realistically, people aren't going to transfer from where they are now to be putting 30% of their profit margins overnight. That takes time, and we have to, step by step, we have to work with people to iron out all the bugs and to work with them to enable them to prove they're worth that difference. But that's where they should be ending up. That's the value of what they do.
Yeah.
And even then, they still might be undercharging. It depends on what their cost base is. Putting a percentage on your cost base doesn't mean you're the right money for the job. You've got to look at that job and look at the value of the project, how much it's improving the value and the quality of the property, and take a view as to what your share of that should be. Yeah,
and I guess how much you want that project as well.
Well, if you get this right, people will want to use you. I've got to tell you, people are desperate to find good builders. That's why I have a business. They come to me to recommend good builders, and they will pay a premium. So this is all about making yourself attractive to those people. They will beat a path to your door if you do it right.
Okay.
You know, you can't win by competing against these cowboy builders that are charging unrealistic money and hope to come out running a successful, profitable business at the end of it. You've got to differentiate yourself from a move-up market.
So we need to signpost people to the marketing your business and how to. And there's another Power Hour actually about
how to go out market.
How to go out market. Yeah, thank you. So the other side of your business, helping the builder, just revisiting this, is that so the builder's got a number of inquiries that he's got ongoing, and you've been coaching him about how to move up market, how to prove his worth. He's got some quotes out with the clients. one of the clients comes back and said, well, I really like you, but this other guy's a bit cheaper. What can you then do to help that builder? What would you suggest?
Well, we're already involved, actually. We do it at a much earlier stage, and that's what's unique about what we do. So when the client first contacts the builder says, look, we're continually monitored by the Better Business Group. Do I have your permission to put them in touch with you? They can give you a lot of help and free advice on the project. So straight away, we contact that client. We offer them help and advice. We offer them advice on how to do due diligence on the builders that are coming around to quote on the job. We offer them a quote comparison service whereby we go through the quotes to the cheaper guys,
right?
Basically to show them why our builders are right money. But the big thing we do is we do a free background check on the cheaper quotes. They're all tempted to go with the cheaper guy. They tell me the quotes are all like for like. I get the quotes, they're definitely not like for like. I do the credit check on the cheap guy, and it can't be good. You know, we're telling the builders that we're talking to today that they're not charging enough. Trying a profitable business. So when the client's telling me the clients are half their price, they're desperate. They obviously
that
are
business can't be at all healthy. It can't be.
So, but it's one of two things. They're problem cowboy builders and are deliberately undercosting a job just to fleece the client, take a deposit and disappear, or rip them off for extras throughout the job. Or they're continually in and out of business, or they're inexperienced. They don't know how to cost the jobs. That's another thing. You know, if they're not using proper software, they're taking a flyer in the early days. So they're inexperienced. They're never going to finish that job for the money because they can't afford to. So it won't know well for the client. So whenever we do these credit checks on the cheaper builders, it's always a disaster, to be honest with you. More than 9 out of 10 are seriously detrimental.
Right.
Which is why we're very keen on our builders making good profits. So they've got posting a good profit. So they've got a good credit report. We do this, we keep all our builders on monitor for financials as well. So the difference between our builders is stark, you know, and they will then see the difference on what they're paying for. If you don't do this sort of stuff, all they can compare you on is the price. You know, so you've got to get away from this price and give them reasons to choose you.
Yeah.
And we've also discussed, go for it. Also discussed in one of the webinars, the main reason that builders appear to be expensive is because they're not quoting like for like, mainly on the PC sums. We've been through in one of the previous webinars in a lot of detail on how to avoid that, to make sure your quotes are on a like for like basis. I don't really want to go through that now, but I want to point out that is a huge problem for most builders. They're not quoting these jobs correctly.
Right. So, and by not correctly, you mean that one of the cheaper builders is he's not making any assumptions about anything. If it's not on the drawing, or even, you know, say for example things like electrics or the kitchen. Yeah. I mean, is that what you mean?
I see quotes that the cheap guy's done his standard installation for electrics, and what that is one socket in the room and one central pedal.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse than the bare minimum almost, isn't it? It's
and 150 quid for another one if you want it.
Yeah.
Whereas my guys will quote 4 or 5 double sockets in the room and so on. So they're building up the price of their quote unrealistically. They're quoting what needs to be done at the end of the day. And if the client wants a proper job done, they will pay that money. Yeah. But they're just making themselves look hugely expensive compared to the other guy, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I guess that, you know, the other side of this is that it's why it pays to go through the quote with the client. You know, don't just ping it across on an email, fingers crossed, hope for the best. You know, going in, I mean, I know it's a little bit challenging during kind of COVID times, but I hope by now lots of builders are using remote technologies, having a remote meeting like we are right now, so they can go through the quote with the client and you know, talk things through. And these are the, you know, some of the decisions I've made. And again, that just adds to how experienced you look, and you can underline the, you know, the not the extras, but the things you've accounted for, so they can then go back and look at the other quote and say, well, shoot, he has literally only allowed for one plastic, you know, socket in the room, whereas I've got chrome stuff all over my new kitchen, what have you. That's why that's more expensive. So you need to take that time to go through that.
I see quotes for bifold doors, 1,900 quid to 9,000 quid. Well, obviously not like for like. But all the client sees is bifold doors. They think they're the same. The windows, the boiler, the flooring, the skirting. It's going to be 20% of the quote value on some of the jobs, you know, and that's the difference between you being a similar sort of price to the other builder or not. Yeah. So this is absolutely vital.
Oh, so there's a bit of a minefield, but there's some easy solutions there. So using software to help you with your estimating, having a chat with you to get some background on their business client perception. Hopefully, if they do engage with you, being able to not discredit, that sounds very underhand, but really present the reality of these cheaper firms, which by, you know, an outcome is that it does undermine their cheap price and the fact that they can't really be trading successfully. I think you've probably said to me before as well, a lot of these guys that are running these, you know, apparently cheaper firms, they've been in and out of business over and over. They've just changed the company name subtly, created a new company now on Companies House, and they, you know, they're apparently seamlessly trading, but they're not.
There's one guy, I won't mention his name. I've been tracking him for about 20 years. He's had 7 different companies so far. He's got a conviction for fraud.
Yeah.
He's still going out quoting. He gives customers a list of 3 pages of clients they can talk to, none of which are jobs he's done. They're all his mates and friends from the pub that will say they did a good job. They live in nice houses. He pays them 100 quid if they go round and then use it. You know, they'll tell him they did the job.
Yeah.
If the client then uses them, he gives them 100 quid. So this is the sort of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So, and it's very difficult to overcome that because they're really convincing on point of sale. But when we go through the true history of these people, obviously the clients, nobody wants to invite a road builder into their house. Do they have a problem? They're all terrified. Their starting position actually is the whole industry. You're all a bunch of cowboys and they're in for a disaster anyway. And they're trying to do what they can to minimise the problems. So we're a breath of fresh air to these people, give them independent help and advice. We tell it as it is. You know, if the other guy's good, we don't try and sell against them. You know, good luck to them. But invariably they're not. Certainly if they're cheaper, they're not. Okay. So this stuff is crucial, and we can have conversation with clients that the builders can't have. They won't have the same conversation, to be honest with you. If they decide they don't want to use you, they want you off the phone. They're not going to tell you all the reasons they didn't want to choose you. But you need to know those reasons if you're going to move the business forwards. Otherwise, you think it's price. You just lower your price on the next job to keep the guys employed.
Okay, so how do you get so you've got all this background information, you're able to price for the job correctly. We'll revisit again quickly the formula that you use for, you know, calculating your margins and your overheads in conclusion in a few minutes. But how do they find the right client? I know we touched on this in another Power Hour, I was going to say video there, but a Power Hour. Perhaps you could touch very briefly. So remind us, how do they get the right client? Because the recommendation that I'm sure most of our builders listening are in, I'm sure.
A lot of them are talking to these clients already, but they're losing the jobs because the other guy they're actually using is more expensive and more professional than them. And that happens more often than they would think. We give builders leads for work as well. So I buy in details of every planning application in the UK every day. We write to them. They ask me to recommend builders. I then interview every one of those before I pass the lead on to the builders. And then we work at every stage with the builder to turn those into business. We want the client and our builder both to have a good outcome. So we're in constant contact with the client and the builder throughout the process. They send me the quote to look over before they send it to clients. We'll go through all this sort of PC sum stuff and advise them on that. And we have a dialogue with the client every time, so we know when it's best for our builder to talk to them. Our builder tells when he's met them, so we can change our phoning date again. So we're getting constant feedback, not only about our builder, but about the competitors to our builders. Who are they? What price did they charge? And what did the customer like about them? What didn't they like about them? Similarly with our builder, what were his strong points? What were his detrimental points? So even if our builder doesn't get that job, we're helping to mentor him for the next one. We use this experience to help him for the next one. You know, we're not miracle workers. They're not going to win them all. They're not going to be able to charge a huge premium overnight. But unless they find out the realities of where they are and who their competitors are, they've got no help of moving the business forward. I
think that's interesting you're saying about the competitors, because I don't know how much, you know, building firm owners look up and out at what's going on in their locale, their local town, or their local area in the city, what have you. Certainly as a software house, I'm always looking at what's out there on the market, but I don't suppose lots of firms have the opportunity. They probably know that, you know, if they're talking down the pub, there's one of the builders is random about and he's got a slick car and all that. But yeah, it's interesting that you can provide competitive feedback. It's
a lonely old world out there for these builders. You know, they work long hours. As you say, the only contact they have is with other builders down the pub. They never tell them the truth anyway about their businesses.
I can imagine.
It's all flash, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but we do find out the truths, you know, and sometimes that's unpleasant for people, but, you know, that's what they need to know to move the business forward, you know. And it's a starting point which you can work on. My frustration is often we give people guidance and we find out what they need to do. I have the same conversation with them 4 or 5 months later, they're still doing the same thing and not put anything into practice. Well, that's really hard work for us, you know, but good educated builders are serious about, you know, earning proper money and building a proper business. They're very receptive to what we do. We work together and we both earn a bit of money, you know, and it's there to be had. There's a huge marketplace out there.
So what's going to happen? What's going to happen then? Would you say if a builder, you know, doesn't do this now? What's the
It's going to become increasingly tough. You think it's tough now, just wait for 6 months' time when all the guys are even more desperate, quote even more stupid prices. You cannot win by being cheap. You've got to charge what you're worth. If you want to have a pension in the future, you want to have some sort of a lifestyle outside business, you've got to have money. And to do that, you've got to charge the right money for the right job. Yeah. This industry is not about filling the diary and keeping your subcontractors and your suppliers in caviar. This is about working for the right customers, for the right job, for the right profit margin. So you charge what you're worth. After you've got your salary, you've got income for the business that you can spend to improve your lifestyle and the business in the future. It'll carry you through bad times. You can pay your subbies a bit more so that they're always there when you need them. And they know that you get good jobs with good clients, so they have no hassle on the jobs themselves. They have an easier life as well. It's a virtuous circle, but trying to roll a boulder uphill is a complete nightmare for a builder, and it never ends well. Yeah. You might do well for a few months, but you'll have one person that knocks you because they're the wrong sort of client, or you've costed it wrongly and you lose money. And you'd be better off sitting at home watching daytime TV for 6 months, to be honest with you, and all the grief and aggravation you got through for no money. And I do see people like that all the time. They have profitable jobs for a large part of the year. They lose all that profit on one badly costed job or a job that went pear-shaped. Yeah. But there's no lifestyle, you know.
It's a lot of risk. It's a lot of personal risk, I would say, which therefore makes it very, as we were saying before, a very stressful industry to be in. And I guess here at HBXL, we talk to builders all day, every day, and you know, we're ultimately always very impressed with the number of kind of, excuse the expression, the number of balls in the air, you know, and you just don't want to drop one of them. So I can hear what builders are going to be saying. It's really hard to make time to have a conversation with Simon or a demo of the software, but these are things that could really revolutionize your business. So thinking about where you're at today, where would you like to be? Let's get on that journey together with Simon, with the HBXL software, which is going to help you out no end, and you know, we'll help you get there. And I hear what you're saying. If you don't do it now, I mean, when are you going to do it? And you know, it's as good a time as any. So I hope the listeners today are going to find it reasonably inspiring, not too depressing. We told you that kind of Simon was a bit of a Gordon Ramsay in the building industry, and I think that's true. But have a chat with Simon. You know, he's as you can tell, you know, very relaxed. We'll tell it straight, and you can take it from there. You know, no commitment, and obviously you can have a demo of the HBXL software again with our friendly and non-techie team. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for not swearing as much as Gordon.
I held back.
And I've got a feeling you're going to be really busy after this. So, guys, if you want Simon's advice, do get on the phone to him or drop him an email. He'll be there for you. I don't know. Have we covered everything today, Simon? I'm just having a look through to.
We could talk forever, couldn't we? Let's have a quick scan. I think we probably have covered most things.
Yeah, we've got so much. So have a look at this. Yeah. Obviously, watch this Power Hour as you are. Have a look at the marketing your business. Have a look at the taking your business, you know, upscaling it and taking on more premium jobs.
My sure advice is really take a step back. Look at where you are. Are you happy with where you are? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years' time? You've got to have a plan to get there. If you just carry on doing what you're doing now, you're not going to be any different in 5 or 10 years' time. But you'll have a bad back, you'll have bad knees, you'll probably have a divorce behind you. You've got seriously, a huge proportion of my builders are divorced, some more than once actually.
Yeah.
So now is the time. It's never the wrong time to move the business forward. It's all achievable. You'll all know builders that are charging a premium for what you're charging now. So now is the time to do it. The differences between good and bad builders are going to become even more transparent in recessionary times. And if you want to succeed and get work when times are tough, you've got to be different to the other guys. This is what this is all about. All right.
I think that's very, very sound advice, Simon. And this, with the other videos, you know, going to set you up really well. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for listening. Do give Simon a call. He's there to speak with you. Okay, well, thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Jo.
Until next time.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure, and always a fun chat. So I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, Simon. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Cheers, guys. Speak to you soon.
Yeah. Yeah.